This week's episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob is not brought to you by wrapping paper or candles. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. And this is our first ever live episode, broadcasting live from Film Snob headquarters and all over Instagram. It's very strange. I haven't done this before, so hopefully it all works out well and there's not too many technical difficulties. I've already got a couple of people watching, which is awesome. So hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I recognize one name there, and it's definitely very, very early in the morning where they are, so thank you. This is episode 73 of the podcast. First time doing it live. Would love to have done it live in person. I got inspired by my friends at Midnight Terrors, Kevin and Jason. They did a couple of live shows in bars, which was very, very cool. Whilst the show's got a wonderful following, it's a bit all over the place. We've got some people in Victoria, some people in Western Australia, some people in the US, and so probably not enough to justify having a venue at this stage. But we are doing live, kind of live, live from the office, as I mentioned, from Film Snob headquarters. So you can probably tell I'm very nervous, but we're going to give it a go. This is the closest to live TV I've ever done. So episode 73, yesterday was my 35th birthday, which was very exciting. I'm officially middle-aged, and to celebrate that, I thought we'd do a different kind of list. Now, because we are live and broadcasting, if you have questions, if you want to throw out comments and stuff like that, just shout things out. Definitely will. I'm seeing some hearts already, which is lovely. I'm going to get distracted by this. I can tell I do not have a good attention span. I'm going to go through some movies. If you're watching this only for a little bit or you're listening to this later on, it is being recorded. So the whole episode will drop on Sunday as it does normally. At which point you'll be able to listen to the audio. But because it is the visual medium, I do have a couple of props that I'll use throughout the episode as well. And we'll just see how it goes. The list I'm doing is quite long. So if people don't want to stick around for the whole thing, I get it. If people are already unimpressed, I get it. But thank you for everyone tuning in, and we're just going to have some fun. So, as I mentioned, turned 35 yesterday, and I thought, what can I do to celebrate on the podcast? I know, I'll do a list. That's what we do. If you've listened to the podcast before, we're basically the high fidelity of podcasts. We just talk about our favorite things and list them. So for 35, I'm going to do 35 movies in 35 years, one from each year I've been alive. If you're good at maths, you'll notice I've already stuffed that up because I was born in 88. It's 2023. Technically, there should be 36 movies on this list. I've got a 36th one. It's going to be fine. Excellent. No one's put any comments in or questions yet that I can see. I'm new to this, so if you are and it's not coming through, I apologize. Let me have a quick look. I'm just going to move the camera. Here we go. And let's have a look. No questions yet. That's what it says. Perfect. That means it's working. Alrighty. So we're going to go in chronological order from 1988 through to 2023. That is my list. Oh, my goodness. What's going on here? So to kick off the list, should I talk about the show a bit more? Oh, man. I'll do a quick background on the show. So for those of you who have never listened to the podcast before, this show was created back in 2022. February of 2022 is when we debuted. The idea for this show came to me probably in the year 2020, smack bang in the middle of the pandemic. Obviously a very sad and crushing time for all of us. We're all very isolated and didn't get to see each other. And one thing I really missed was talking to my friends about movies. And I kind of worked in a few different jobs where the people I worked with didn't actually watch a lot of movies. You will notice throughout the tenure of this episode that I'm a huge movie fan. Always have been. If you follow me on the podcast, on the Instagram, sorry, you'll know that. All I do is post about movies. I can't shut up about it. It's the only skill I have is talking about movies. So in 2020, I started to get the idea of it, but then I had a daughter, so my focus became being a father and being a husband and all that sort of stuff, which I've really enjoyed. But as my daughter started to get a little bit older and, the sleep routines and stuff changed, I found that I had a bit more free time again. So I said to my wife, I said, look, I want to do a podcast. I want to sit down and talk to people about movies. And now, thanks to the pandemic, one good thing that came out of the pandemic is that we learned about Zoom. and we could just pretty much, talk to everyone without being in the same room as them. So it seemed perfect. There was no longer that issue with scheduling drives to people's houses and bringing a ton of recording equipment. We could just do it from the comfort of our own homes. So, pardon me. So it began. And right before it began, my attitude towards movies changed. I was very much a snob, as the name of the show would entail. Um, I very much was very snooty. I would only watch certain types of films, and I just kind of looked down at them. And during the pandemic, I just kind of threw that away. I was like, you know what? Like, life is sad right now. Maybe we don't need to criticize all the things we love. Maybe we can just sit back and enjoy everything, or at least find something good in everything. So that's kind of how I changed my attitude in a very abrupt, brief summary. If you want to hear the full story, there are 72 other episodes in which I talk about that. So for sure, if you go back and listen, you can hear me talk about it. But that was the birth of it. And the idea for the podcast in terms of its format really came from this talk show I grew up watching in Australia as a teenager. If you are Australian, you may have heard of it, especially if you're a little bit older like me. There was this fantastic talk show on TV throughout the 2000s called Rove Live, where this stand-up comedian Rove pretty much had guests on every week, like most talk shows. But there wasn't as much of an agenda. You know, most talk shows these days, it's very much designed to promote something and talk about, the latest movie coming out or the latest album coming out or anything like that. But Rove was a little bit different. He just brought people on to have a chat. And there was always cool, interesting, funny people that were entertaining, could hold conversation. And whilst I would never dare to put myself in the same breath as Rove, that's kind of what I was trying to do as well, was get people that I thought were interesting and fun and cool, get them on the show and see if other people like them also. So that's the birth of the podcast. So now that I've done that, I actually don't know if anyone's still watching, but that's okay if they're not, because it's late for people who are on. Pardon me. Now that we've done that, let's jump into the list. There are 36 movies to go through, so I've already broken my own rules. Instead of 35 and 35, it's 36 and 35. Starting in 1988, the year I was born, the movie I want to talk about and recommend. I'm going to get there. I forgot one more thing to tell you. These aren't my favorite films. These aren't the best films I've seen in the world. These aren't films that you must watch before you die. But these are good films. I don't think any of them are in any of my top 5 lists, but at the same time, they're really entertaining. They're going to make your life a bit better by watching them. Okay, rules done. Now we can jump into 1988. So first movie on my list, it's a comedy. It's a bit of a crime film as well. Really underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. But it's 1988's Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, starring Michael Caine and Steve Martin. Basically, it's about these two con men who cross each other's paths in Europe. Michael Caine's very erudite. He's very posh and upper class. He thinks of grifting and the con man life is very prestigious, and he treats it like an art form. Whereas Steve Martin's more of kind of like a he knows what he's doing. He treats it like he's a criminal. He considers con men the lowest of the low, but he doesn't mind because he gets what he wants. So basically, they cross paths. They end up deciding to team up together to work on this big con in Europe, and hilarity ensues. It's really fun. It's really funny. They're both equally hilarious and great, and the performance is excellent. So definitely recommend watching Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. That's my first movie. That's 1988. Not many visual cues there. So let's jump into 1989. The movie I'm recommending from 1989, one of my favorites of all time. I have a visual for you. It's Tim Burton's Batman. Now, if anyone has listened to the podcast before, we did a whole episode on Batman last year when the Matt Reeves Batman came out, and Nick Owen and I did our top lists of our favorite Batman movies. And shockingly and disappointingly to most people, I didn't mention the 89 Batman film at all. It's not because I don't like it. I just think, that movie had to walk so that the franchise could run. I do love the 1989 Batman movie quite a bit. It was really great to see Michael Keaton back in the role this year in The Flash. Jack Nicholson's Joker is perfect. It's so entertaining. Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale is wonderful. It's definitive Batman. Yeah, it hasn't aged 100%. Like, there's definitely some of the slowest car chases you'll ever see in a Batman film, but the performances are excellent, and it is very, very Batman. So definitely worth watching. That's my second movie, 1989. Let's jump into the 90s now. My first pick for the 90s, 1990. I've got another visual for you. It's Rob Reiner's adaptation of Stephen King's Misery. If you've never read Misery before, it's haunting. It's way darker than the movie. It's pretty messed up, as Stephen King likes to do. but the flick's incredible. James Caan is brilliant. I think it's one of James Caan's best performances. I know people will go to Godfather and some other things, but and lots of his earlier work. But I think Misery is wonderful. His performance in Misery is great. Kathy Bates, obviously excellent, terrifying. That hobbling scene, it's a go-to. People always, refer to that one, but it's great. It's really worth watching. The flick is sinister. It's tense. It really does a great job of building suspense and making you feel unsettled. So definitely a great movie. And I think it's one of the best Stephen King adaptations. Like for me, Misery and Stand By Me are probably the two best ones. Although some of the recent ones have been good as well, but those two to me are fantastic, and Misery is excellent. We're moving through this list quickly. We've still got over 30 movies to go. For 1991, I'm a big comic book fan, as most of you will know if you pay attention to the Instagram or if you listen to the podcast. I love a comic book adaptation. I love me some Ninja Turtles, so I'm going back to when they were dressed up in suits and puppets. It is 1991's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze. This is a really underrated flick. I've heard a lot of people make fun of it and criticize it. It is silly, but that is kind of the point. Basically, it's kind of the origin story of the Ninja Turtles. The first movie is very closely taken from the comics. The comics are very, very dark. If you've never read the original Ninja Turtles comic books, they're very dark. They're basically a satire of Daredevil, right down to the origin story of the villains. So the idea is that the radiation that hit Matt Murdock's eyes and blinded him and gave him the powers of Daredevil, that same ooze then went down into the sewers and infected the Ninja Turtles and made them who they are. If you need more comparisons, the Ninja Turtles instructor is Splinter. Daredevil's instructor was Stick. Daredevil fights the hand, the Turtles fight the foot. There's a lot of great little things like that. So Secret of the Ooze dives into that origin story. They discover that they were created by Ooze and they want to find out what happened. Shredder comes across it and he wants to make his own mutant army, and he creates the characters Tokka and Razor, which were pretty cool antagonists in the arcade game and the Super Nintendo game as well. And basically it's about them figuring out where they came from, I guess having a bit of an identity crisis, which is pretty big for a Ninja Turtles film, like for them to have an identity crisis, although they did a really good job with that in the New Turtles film as well. So that's a big part of it. And then obviously they have to stop Shredder and destroy the ooze so that no more mutants can be created. There's the excellent line, one of my favorite lines in any movie, one of my favorite jokes, is when they're all hiding in the junkyard trying to save Raphael because he's big-headed and he ran in without any help and he got captured. So Leo says, "It's quiet, a little too quiet." And then someone goes, "Look, there's Raph." And Michelangelo says, "Yeah, a little too Raph." Delivery, terrible. Still a bit nervous for the live one, but definitely worth watching. It's very silly, very much a product of its time, but very enjoyable. So if you're a Turtles fan or if you've got kids who are into the Ninja Turtles, you can't go wrong. It's so much fun. Jumping into 1992, this is the first of it's the second of a number of comedies. You'll notice that this list is just chock full of comedies. We haven't really talked about a lot of comedies on the podcast, so this seemed like a good opportunity to recommend some great ones. For 1992, I'm going for the SNL movie Wayne's World, based on the sketch from Saturday Night Live starring Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. I relate to it a lot because I do an underground show, a podcast all by myself, and these guys have an underground TV show that they film from their basement. It's the story of two rock and roll guys just kind of navigating their lives in their 20s. Their cable access show gets picked up by a major studio. They kind of are forced to sell out, and then they try to obviously regain creative control of their show. There's love. There's a love story with Cassandra, the rock chick. There's the evil businessman played by Rob Lowe. It's really funny. It's really silly. If you like Austin Powers or anything with Mike Myers in it, you got to start with Wayne's World. It's so funny. The flick still holds up. It still makes me laugh whether I'm watching with an audience or by myself. So definitely worth checking out. Which brings us to 1993. Hey, only 30 years to go. 1993 had a really important movie come out. It really did inform a lot of my film watching and fandom as I grew up. It's a film that has been, I would say, universally hated for most of the time since it was released, but it is finding new life now. A lot of people are digging it. I rewatched it earlier this year because they remade it or did an adaptation of it in animated form. And every time I watch it, I have a different experience. But this year, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. If you know what it is, if you don't take it too seriously, it's a lot of fun. For 1993, I'm going Super Mario Brothers. It's a weird flick. It's got almost nothing in common with the video games at all, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. You've got John Leguizamo as Luigi. You've got Bob Hoskins as Mario. They're playing brothers. There's about a 20-year age gap between them, but that's fine. You've got Dennis Hopper as Bowser, or they just call him King Koopa in the movie because why get too close to the source material? But it's the right choice because Dennis Hopper is a maniac. You've got Fiona Shaw playing his like girlfriend slash assistant slash secretary. You've got I've forgotten her name now, but the girl who plays Peach, it's Samantha Mathis, who's wonderful. There's lovely little references throughout, like you see bombs, you see like the bricks and stuff like that. There's mushrooms everywhere. There's some pipes. It's not it's not the faithful adaptation we wanted in 1993, but I was a kid. I was 5. I didn't care. He was wearing red overalls. Luigi was wearing green overalls. I was in. I loved it. And it's really fun. The music is great. I love the soundtrack. It's really big and brassy and is deliberately, fun and silly. So I dug it quite a bit. Um, if you're looking for accuracy, you're not going to find it there. But I say go in with an open mind and an open heart. There's a lot to love about this film. There's a lot of fun to be had with it. And if you don't like it, it's not your thing. They released a really good Mario movie this year, one of the best movies of the year, in my opinion, and you can have a lot of fun with that one. So let's jump to 1994. This is a movie I don't own at all on physical media. I don't own Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or Wayne's World either. Actually, I do own Wayne's World. I could not find it for the life of me. 1994, the last time I saw this movie, I think it was on DVD. I don't think it's ever had a Blu ray release in Australia, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. I'm not the world's biggest Jim Carrey fan. I don't dislike him. His style of humor is just very specific, and sometimes it covers what I'm into, and sometimes it doesn't. But this one definitely did. It's the 1994 classic, The Mask. It's so much fun. Obviously, his role as Stanley Ipkiss, even when he's not The Mask, is wonderful. But Jim Carrey in that green makeup is hilarious. It's so much fun. It is the film debut of Cameron Diaz, which I'm sure most people know. She has that very iconic red dress scene, and she's wonderful in it as well. You got a dog wearing a mask peeing on bad guys. Like, what do you want? Like, it's so much fun. It's very silly. It was probably one of the first comic book movies that really embraced being a comic book movie. Like Batman, which I mentioned before, is a great flick, and obviously did quite a good job at adapting that source material. But they didn't want to be known as a comic book film. They were trying to sell it as more of an action film. They're trying to kind of steer away from that. Like even in the credits, it says based on the DC magazine. It doesn't say DC Comics. Whereas The Mask is like, hey, we're based on a comic. So he's spinning around like a tornado. He's turning into a wolf. He's howling at attractive women. He's wearing a big, bold yellow suit. And he's doing the cha-cha and also, it's wonderful. It's so much fun. Flick holds up like crazy, but definitely, if you haven't seen The Mask, go back and check it out. Don't get it confused with the Eric Stoltz film Mask. Two very different films. Which brings us to 1995. I would say this comedy had more influence on me and my sense of humor as a child than any other movie. I grew up in the Adam Sandler era, so you could pick any Adam Sandler film from the 90s and early 2000s, and it won me over. But this is the one that really struck with me, even more so than Happy Gilmore. It's Billy Madison. Billy Madison is ridiculous. It's so silly. It is based, for those who don't know, it's the story of a man-child. I guess kind of before we were using that phrase, like now man-child is pretty commonly used. We do say it quite a bit. Myself included, definitely a man-child here. But Billy Madison was kind of like the first film to really kind of sell that. Maybe Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. But it's about this man-child who never had to study. His dad's a millionaire, so he got to pay his way through school, so he never had to really try. But as his dad is getting older and getting ready to retire, he's like, look, my son is not a man. He won't be able to take over the business. I'm going to give it to someone else who's responsible. And Billy's like, well, I would like to have a chance. What if I went back to school all over again and gave it a real shot and tried to graduate? And hilarity ensues. You've got the wonderful late Norm Macdonald playing one of his friends. So funny. Steve Buscemi is excellent in it. Bridget Wilson, who was in another film I really like from '94, Mortal Kombat. She's really good in it. Chris Farley is excellent. It's an absolute blast. There's not a bad casting in it. It's perfect. It's so funny. It's ridiculous, and it is probably top tier Adam Sandler for me. If you haven't seen Billy Madison, check it out. It's weird. Like he does this weird, goofy voice, and some of the jokes have aged. Depending on how you feel about certain jokes, but it's a lot of fun. Let's jump to 1996. This is probably my favorite children's film of all time. Sadly, I don't own it, but it is on my wish list, so I'll be getting it very, very soon. Based on the Roald Dahl book, starring the no longer acting Mara Wilson, it's Matilda. Matilda is probably my favorite childhood book of all time. I've read that book over 100 times, probably, I would say. In the last episode Tina was on, we were talking about Harry Potter and how I've read those books dozens of times. Matilda eclipses it. It's such a wonderful story about a girl who just wants to be loved. It's so heartbreaking. I loved as a kid because she had superpowers and she could move things with her mind. As an adult, it destroys me because it's just about a girl whose biggest crime was being born a girl and not a boy, and so therefore her parents didn't care. But it's so wonderful. Mara Wilson is excellent. The book is set in the UK, but the adaptation is American. I think Danny DeVito did a great job, not just acting it, but also directing. Ray Perlman's great as well. The entire cast is excellent. All the children are really good. It's really tough to cast a children's movie with children as actors and get as many consistent performances as they managed to do, especially in the 90s. The pedigree has gone up. There's way more like amazing child actors now than there were in the 90s, but Matilda nailed it. It's a really wonderful family film. I can't wait to show my daughter it. She's not really into live action stuff at the moment. She's still more into animated, but once we do get to the live action stuff, Matilda's going to be the first one I show her, and it's a great flick. So if you haven't seen Matilda, check it out. You won't be disappointed. Alrighty, let's jump to 1997. Continuing the thread of comedies. This next one I guess I was so attracted to the film or so interested in the film because of the TV show. It's a TV show that I shared a love with my grandmother, who's no longer with us. My grandmother loved this show. We would always watch it after dinner. So whenever we had like a family dinner, we'd pop on ABC, and this would be on, I want to say, 7:30. The show was Mr. Bean. So the movie is Mr. Bean, Bean the Ultimate Disaster Movie. Rowan Atkinson, surrounded by an incredible American cast, is accidentally recruited to be the new spokesperson at an art gallery. It's a mistake. His job in the UK is not as a spokesperson, but he's actually just the security guard. So it's a great kind of mix-up movie. And then he's required to kind of help save this gallery from a bunch of insanity. It's everything you expect from Mr. Bean. It's just like a giant episode. It's so much fun. The constant theme you'll notice from all the movies tonight is they're fun and they're silly, but it really is that. In a rare move, I think it's better than the TV show. Most movies based on TV shows don't tend to be as good as the show itself. I disagree with this one. I think whilst the show is brilliant, the movie takes that concept and runs with it. And interestingly, they let Mr. Bean talk a little bit, which is obviously a bit of a no-no for silent characters. A lot of people don't like silent characters suddenly talking in a movie. I think it really adds to the experience, like him singing Yesterday by the Beatles while they're drunk, him exploding a roast turkey, just him, getting out a toolkit and adjusting the virtual reality right so everyone gets thrown off the chairs. I could go on and on. It's brilliant. It's so fun. Definitely check out Bean, the Ultimate Disaster Movie. It should be available on streaming, and I know it's on DVD, or at least it was until recently. Moving on, let's get some more physical representations. Let's show something and make this medium interesting. 1998, South Park is a huge hit. People love South Park. They want to capitalize on Matt Stone and Trey Parker. David Zucker comes to them and they come up with the idea for a live-action sports film called BASEketball. BASEketball is incredible. It's so funny. It holds up. Like this flick, 15 years later. Nope, 25 years later. Well, I'm old. Just the idea, it's just so ridiculous. The idea that two guys playing ball in the driveway accidentally create the new national sport that is worth millions and millions of dollars. The amount of dirty jokes they managed to fit into this film and still get an M rating. So in Australia, it's M. I imagine it was probably an R in America because the ratings are a little bit different. But it's just insane. Like, there's so many dirty jokes in there. There's so much cursing that seems to go unseen. And I'm not talking about like F words, like obviously they're very obvious, but there's just like so many filthy like genitalia jokes, visual genitalia jokes. The bit where they're in the locker room with giant wangs is great. Um, Obviously, Trey Parker has to sing at least one song, and the song in the car while he's driving to the airport is brilliant. Um, all the I just I'm gonna watch it tonight. I'm gonna be honest. Like just thinking about, it, I'm gonna watch it tonight. Basketball, it's so much fun. I gotta stop saying that. I've got to come up with a new adjective. It's but it is. It's hilarious. And they don't make comedies like this anymore. But it's definitely worth your time. Go check it out. Movie number nope, year 1999. I got distracted. Sticking with the comedy theme, but we're going to do a bit of a genre bender now. We're heading into horror as well. This is one of the first horror films I ever saw. I know when I've been on Midnight Terrors, We Love Horror, and when I've done Halloween episodes, I've talked a lot about Final Destination. I've talked about The Descent. I've talked about The Faculty being films that inspired me and kind of gave me that love of horror. Until I was doing this list, I completely forgot there was one really important flick that influenced me as well. This one's got, oh my goodness, I've got to look up the cast. It's Devon Sawyer, I remembered. And the boy who plays Foggy in Daredevil, I can't remember his name right now. I'm going to look it up while I'm talking. It is Eldon Henson. Seth Green's in as well. It's about a guy whose hand gets possessed by the devil and goes on a killing spree. If you haven't seen it, the flick is called Idle Hands, and it's so weird. So Devon Sawyer's hand gets possessed. I can't remember exactly how it happens. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but he ends up cutting it off because his hand kills his two best friends. So he cuts off the hand thinking that he's going to be fine. The hand goes on a rampage on its own. It starts fondling women in cars. It starts murdering people. But it's great. It's a really good cheesy 90s horror film. I can't imagine trying to make something like this again today. Maybe the closest thing to Idle Hands is Deathgasm from 2016, 2017, I think it was. That might be the closest thing tonally to it. Maybe Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. But it's very rare they make really wacky, silly horrors like this. Maybe Renfield to an extent. But yeah, Idle Hands is a lot of fun. It's very, very 90s, but in every, like, the best way possible. So let's say goodbye to the 90s now. Let's jump into the 2000s. This was tough. I wasn't sure where to go, how to launch it off, and I had to go with a flick that really. This one, how do I explain this flick? How do I explain its effect on me? It really got me into sci-fi. I wasn't a big sci-fi fan as a kid. I never watched Star Wars as a child. I didn't watch Star Wars until I was like 14 or 15. I didn't watch Star Trek, so sci-fi really wasn't on my radar. Maybe Men in Black was the only exception. So it was a bit tricky. Hang on, I'm just going to drink. But there was a flick that I watched with my friends that changed everything. It starred Vin Diesel, one of his first roles. This is before Fast and the Furious. It's about a planet with three suns, but then they happen to land as they're about to go into an eclipse for 6 months. And the movie is called Pitch Black. And this is a killer flick. You got Radha Mitchell, Vin Diesel. I want to say it's. Oh, what's the guy's name? I'm doing well. I've been up since 6 o'clock, so if I don't know what I'm talking about, that's why. Keith David is who I was thinking of, and Cole Hauser. Basically, it's this transport ship. They're meant to be going to like another planet or another galaxy, and there's a malfunction. The ship crash lands on this planet, and they also happen to be harboring a fugitive, Richard B. Riddick, who's like this terrorist who's known for being violent. He's escaped every prison possible. Also, side note: if you ever played Escape from Butcher Bay on Xbox, great game. But yeah, so they get stuck on this planet, and it turns out there are these monsters on the planet that want to kill and eat them, and they can see in the dark, or they have echolocation. So they have to try and find a way to survive this planet when they've got no light. And the only person who can see is Riddick because he had this weird surgery when he was in prison, as seen in Butcher Bay, where he can see in the dark. It's a great action sci-fi thriller. I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but the last time I watched it, it really held up. It's also got a really great number of horror elements as well. So if you've never watched horror before, but you want to try something a little bit more serious, Pitch Black's a really great starting place. But it definitely gave my fascination and interest in Vin Diesel. I would watch everything Vin Diesel made after that as a teenager, um, until maybe like the Fast and the Furious movies. And I've now seen most of the Fast and the Furious movies, and I will check out most Vin Diesel projects. But as a teenager, I was obsessed. I thought he was insane. I was just thought he was the most incredible actor ever. Um, alrighty, I gotta have some more water. Moving to 2001. This flick, we're going back to comedy. This flick was my favorite movie for years. I would say until I graduated high school, it was probably my favorite movie of all time. It had three of my favorite actors in it, and it's just so stupid. Like I mean that in a loving way. It is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. We've got Jason Biggs, we've got Jack Black, who was an absolute god to me as a teenager, and he's still pretty much a god to me. I think Jack Black's a perfect human being. And Steve Zahn. In America, the flick is called Saving Silverman. In Australia, we call it Evil Woman. So basically, Jack Black, Steve Zahn, and now I want to watch that tonight as well. Jack Black, Steve Zahn, and Jason Biggs are part of a Neil Diamond tribute band called Diamonds in the Rough, and they're all kind of down in the dumps because the band's not doing too well. They can't get any girls, and they don't really know what to do with their lives. Jason Biggs is mourning the girl that got away from his teenage years, who we meet later on, and in one of the weirdest scenes ever. It turns out that she was part of like a traveling circus, and all of her family members were different members of the circus. Her mum was a bearded lady. I'm not going to tell you what her brother was. If you haven't seen it, it's worth it. It's so weird. And then this girl comes and watches them play, played by Amanda Peet, who's wonderful in the flick. She does a really good job of playing this kind of romantic antagonist who basically steals their best friend away from them. So she falls in love with Jason Biggs, and it's just because she's always been treated poorly. Like it's there's a pretty good love story in there, to be honest. And it's not that it's not the story that makes it funny. It's just I feel like there's a lot of improv in there and just a lot of weird, silly things. Like them being in a Neil Diamond tribute band, first of all, is hilarious. They're all wearing sparkly jackets. Jack Black just has some really great lines. Some of the jokes probably again like you wouldn't get away with in movies today, but it's a real product of the time and it's hilarious. I can't recommend it enough. Go check out Evil Woman, check out Saving Silverman. You won't be disappointed. Like everyone I've shown it to just finds it hilarious. It's one of those ones, and again, the last time I showed it to someone was a few years ago, so I don't know if it'll work now. But when I say hilarious, I mean in tears, like just crying from laughter. It's so ridiculous. Okay, 2003. So 2003, at this point, I'm still not a comic book guy. Pardon me. I've seen a couple of comic book films. I don't know the difference between DC and Marvel at this point. I think the comic book characters are created by the movie studios. I'm very ill-informed in 2003. But I'd seen some Batman movies. I'd seen some Spider-Man movies. And this flip came out in 2003. I'd never heard of this character, but I thought the suit was cool. It had a very popular kind of alt rock song in the trailer and in the movie as well. And it would go on to be not just one of my favorite Marvel movies pre MCU, but hands down my favorite Marvel character of all time. Like I love Spider-Man, I love Iron Man, but there is no character in Marvel history I love more than Daredevil. This is also the director's cut. So if you've seen the 2003 cut of Daredevil and you weren't impressed, check out the director's cut. The director's cut is insanely better. I'm not even kidding. Like I know people say that about director's cut. It doesn't have that much more in it. It goes for maybe another 20 minutes or so, but it adds so much to the movie. Ben Affleck is great. Is he as good as Charlie Cox? I don't think it's fair to compare them. This movie was made in 2003 when comic book films weren't really treated so seriously. Charlie Cox at the time he became Daredevil, Marvel was this juggernaut, like it was this unstoppable machine. So the two different things. I think they're both good. I'm secretly hoping in this Deadpool film we do get to see Affleck back as Daredevil. I really enjoyed his performance. We've got Joe Pantoliano. Joey Pants. We'll call him Joey Pants as Ben Urich. Again, a very different take on the Ben Urich we see in the TV show. Both wonderful. Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. Again, a very different take. I like both him and Vincent D'Onofrio. Jennifer Garner as Elektra. I'm very excited to see her come back into Deadpool. I probably do lean more towards Elodie Young. I think she's wonderful. I really think she embraced the real heart of that character, but she also had a whole season to do that. Jennifer Garner had, half an hour screen time in this flick, maybe a little bit more. But it's really close to the comics. It's very accurate to the origin story, the Frank Miller stuff. Um, I think, it was during this time where every superhero had to have a leather outfit, which started with Blade all the way through the X-Men. So is the leather the right material for the suit? Maybe not. But the flick's fun. The only thing I can't justify in that film is the playground scene. I've said that again and again. I've got no excuses for it. It just feels a little bit out of place. You've also got Jon Favreau as Foggy Nelson. Jon Favreau would go on to direct Iron Man and become Happy Hogan. He's really good in it as well. I hope if they keep doing this multiverse stuff and they bring characters from Daredevil, I would really like to see Foggy Nelson from 2003's Daredevil to meet Happy Hogan from the MCU. I think that'd be really fun. And I would like to see Jon Favreau act against himself because I think he's a really underrated actor. But it's great. Like the fight scenes are good. The origin tale is done really well. That final scene with the Kingpin is really good as well. It's a great flick. I love it. I like the way they did the blind division as well by using the rain. In the Netflix show, it was A World on Fire. In the 2003 movie, it's Rain. It's great. Super underrated. Probably one of the better pre-MCU Marvel films. And there are a few good ones. I like most of them. I like the X-Men flicks. I like Ang Lee's Hulk. But Daredevil is my favorite character. I couldn't talk about movies from 2003 and not talk about Daredevil. So let's jump from one Affleck film to another. In 2004, one of my favorite films of all time came out. I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, so this is the perfect time to discuss it. Kevin Smith, obviously one of my favorite directors, had a huge influence on my life. If you listen to the podcast, you would have heard me name drop him again and again. Clerks changed my life. It did. Like, there's no other way around it. Clerks changed my life. It inspired my humor. It inspired my approach to movies. It made me want to be a filmmaker. And then when Kevin Smith became a podcaster, I was like, oh, that's better. That's easier than being a filmmaker. This flick was shredded at the box office. People didn't like it. They criticized it because it was J-Lo and Ben Affleck. But the flick is wonderful. I actually think it's one of Kevin Smith's best films. I'd put it in his top 3. The flick is, of course, Jersey Girl. Hugely underrated. Ben Affleck's a real charm factory in this film. It's also got Jason Biggs from Evil Woman. Basically, he plays Oliver Trinky. This is Ben Affleck, inspired by Oliver Queen from Green Arrow. So Ben Affleck plays Oliver Trinky. He meets Jennifer Lopez, and they fall in love. Unexpectedly, she falls pregnant, and this is the start. This is the first 5 minutes of the movie, and it's like, oh my goodness, like what a lovely romantic comedy. 5 minutes later, Jennifer Lopez is dead. She has an aneurysm and dies giving birth. And Ollie has to change his entire life. He was this kind of upscale New York type magazine writer. He represents artists and filmmakers and musicians. That's what it is. And suddenly he has to move back to New Jersey and raise this daughter with his alcoholic father, played by George Carlin, who's wonderful. And he kind of has to give up all his dreams to become a father. So when I first saw this in 2004, I thought it was a really enjoyable film. When I watched as a father, it changed everything. It destroyed me. It's a really great story about a father and daughter. Liv Tyler's wonderful. She plays a girl who works in a video store. Obviously, being a guy who worked in a video store for as long as I did, it was wonderful. It really resonated with me. But this is a great movie. Really underrated. Really holds up. It actually works better now, almost 20 years later, than it did when it came out. It's slept upon. A lot of people who criticize it didn't even watch it, but you want to check it out. It's worth watching. And the girl who plays the titular Jersey Girl, I can't remember her name. I'm going to look it up right now for you. Raquel Castro. She went on to have a musical career, so she's actually pretty big in the US. But she's so adorable in the film. And again, we're talking about child actors with Matilda before. It's incredible they got such a performance out of such a young actress. It was her first movie as well. Jersey Girl. Cannot recommend enough. Alrighty, let's jump to 2005. We're heading towards the end of my time in high school. We've got 2 more movies and then I'm an adult, kind of. Some would argue I'm still not an adult. 2005 was a huge year for me because this is the year I started studying film. Up until 2005, or the end of 2004, I wanted to be a lawyer, which is something I've never really talked about on the podcast before. I don't really know why I wanted to be a lawyer. There are a couple of different theories there. I think when I was a teenager, I was just like, well, lawyers make money. I want nice stuff. There are other theories people have told me they think that was related to the fact that my parents got divorced. I'm not quite sure. There's probably some truth there as well. But I wanted to be a lawyer until I started doing legal studies, and I was like, boy, this sucks. It's so boring. Um, so when I went to the orientation at my VCE campus, for those who aren't in Australia, VCE or aren't in Victoria, VCE is basically the last 2 years. It's your senior years, year 11 and 12. I was doing an orientation and we're just doing a tour of the school, kind of learning about all the different electives. And we stumbled upon the film and media room. And I'd never given any thought to making movies or being in or studying film at this point. I was just like, I just work in a video store and I love movies. Like that's how oblivious I was. I worked in a video store, I loved movies, and all I ever did was go to the video store and I hadn't put two and two together. And like the minute I went to that room, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh my God, like, yes, this is what I want to do. Something to do with movies. Um, and it changed, like, it really, like, that was the year that I first saw Clerks. A friend of mine named Amy introduced me to Clerks. If you're a Kevin Smith fan, that's a pretty funny joke. Um, but then I just started watching all these weird and wonderful films, independent cinema, all this sort of stuff. And I started going to the movies by myself. And the first movie I ever went and saw by myself was a movie called uh, Sin City. The trailers were incredible. I'd never seen anything like it in the trailers. I started looking at comic book stores when this movie came out, and there were posters for it everywhere. I had no idea what it was. All I knew was there was Jessica Alba dancing in a bikini, which I thought was, I was a teenage boy. I'm not going to lie, I dug it. It had Bruce Willis, who I'd loved from Die Hard. I had Clive Owen, who I'd never seen in anything before, but I liked the cut of his jib. And so I really wanted to see it, and I'd heard it was like this weird action film. It was black and white except for a couple of colors. It was meant to be ultra violent. I'd never really seen anything violent before. I don't think I'd even seen Kill Bill at this stage. I think I'd just been obsessed with the trailers. And I remember like talking to my mum. I was like, "No one wants to see this movie with me. It's too artsy and weird for my friends. My brother and sister are too young for it. You have no interest. Can I go see the movie by myself?" And she was like, "Yeah, yes, you can." So Sin City was the first film I saw, and it's amazing. It's so good. It's aged really well. I really like the sequel as well. I know people didn't like it as much, and fair enough. They made it, 10 years later or almost 20, 15 years later, but it's really good. But that first one, the cast is so iconic. I can't believe how many people they got into it. Like Josh Hartnett, Brittany Murphy. Brittany Murphy, wonderful, by the way. If she hadn't have passed away, she would have been an excellent Harley Quinn. Benicio del Toro, Rosario Dawson, Michael Madsen. Like it just keeps going on and on. Michael Clark Duncan again. Um, it's one of it's one of the best comic book films that isn't a Marvel or DC comic book film. It's really underrated. Check out Sin City. It's violent, but it's not gruesome. And it's very stylized, but it's a lot of fun and definitely worth checking out. And the soundtrack is killer. Like it's Graham Revell and John Debney do the score, and it's this weird kind of like psycho noir rock, like kind of like thumping throughout the film, and it's fun. It's a really cool soundtrack. Like if you ever want to feel like a 1940s gangster, like just put on the Sin City soundtrack and walk down the streets in an overcoat, and you'll feel great. Um, Alrighty, last movie of my schooling years. So pretty much every movie I've talked about so far, I was in school for, except for the first three. This is the last one. This is probably the first independent film on the list. Just looking over, I think it is the first indie film. Um, Obviously, I'd seen Clerks at this point. I'd seen Mysterious Skin. I'd seen a bunch of like weird indie films. This one isn't a weird one, but God, is it wonderful. Great ensemble cast. I'd never really seen anyone in this film do anything before. It had Greg Kinnear. I think maybe I'd seen Wedding Singer, but I hadn't seen much Greg Kinnear stuff. It had Steve Carell. I hadn't watched The Office yet. I wouldn't discover The Office for another 7 years or so. Tony Collette, I'd never seen anything in. Paul Dano, I'd never seen anything in. Alan Arkin, I had no idea who that was. And Abigail Breslin, I think this was her first film. If you haven't put it together already, the flick is, of course, Little Miss Sunshine. It's a great family dramedy. Oh boy, that dad is a jerk. It's the story of this family who are kind of falling apart. Like the dad's really arrogant, obnoxious, and he really shouldn't be. He's kind of a loser, but thinks he's a winner, and he talks to his family about how they should be winners and not losers. Tony Collette plays the mum who's trying to hold this family together. Paul Dano has kind of taken a vow of silence. He doesn't really want to talk. He's protesting one of the wars, I think it is. But he also wants to be a pilot, and oh boy, that gets addressed later in the film. Abigail Breslin wants to enter the Little Miss Sunshine pageant, and her grandfather, played by Alan Arkin, has been helping her practice her dance for the audition. And Steve Carell plays Toni Collette's brother, who recently attempted suicide because he fell in love with one of his male students. So, as you can see already, a lot going on. And then they all have to get thrown into a van and cross country to the Little Miss Sunshine pageant. It's a beautiful movie. It's really funny. It gets really sad and emotional, but at the end of the day, it's all about family. Um, and it's just a really well executed family film. I think like a lot of people kind of consider it like kind of a hipster choice for movies. I mean, you can put labels on it if you want, but I would say if you want to have a good time at the movies, watch Little Miss Sunshine. You can't go wrong. Um, all right, it's been a moment since we've been silly. We haven't been silly for a while, so let's jump into one of the silliest films I've ever seen. We're going back to SNL, another Saturday Night Live inspired film starring some of the writers from Saturday Night Live who pull double duty as writers and actors, starring the members of the rap group known as the Lonely Island. It's got Andy Samberg, it's got Yoma, is it Taccone? Oh my goodness, and Akiva Schaffer, as well as Isla Fisher and Will Arnett and Danny McBride and Bill Hader. The flick is called Hot Rod, and it is the funniest movie ever. That is not a joke. It is the funniest movie of all time. I don't think there's a movie funnier than Hot Rod. There are a couple that come close. Pop Star is really funny. This Is the End is very funny. Hot Fuzz is really funny. I could have chose Hot Fuzz for 2007, but I talked about Hot Fuzz a lot. So we went with Hot Rod. Andy Samberg plays a guy who believes his father knew Evel Knievel, and because of that, he wanted to be a stuntman. He wanted to be a stuntman his whole life. And so all they do every day, him and his friends, is go around shooting videos of him doing stunts, the worst stunts you could ever imagine. They're not good. And then when his stepfather becomes sick, he decides he wants to raise money to help him. His stepfather, played by Ian McShane, like the incredible dramatic actor Ian McShane, plays his stepfather, and all they do is fight each other, and they don't like each other. And when I say fight, I don't mean argue. I mean physically throw each other through walls. And all he wants to do is, raise his money to save his stepfather so he can beat him up, and his stepfather just ridicules him the whole time. It just feels like it was probably the most fun in the world to make this movie. It was so silly. It's great. I don't want to spoil anything. I'll just say Cool Beans. Watch the movie, get to Cool Beans, tell me what you think. I think it's hilarious. Let's move to 2008. And now we're entering what I would say is kind of like, I would say the best modern era. Okay, I'm trying to think of the words, and I'm running off very little sleep. But ultimately, I guess for me and my generation, it was the peak era of comedy. I was talking to the guys from Movie Boners the other day, and they were saying they think there's been a real slump since in the last 15 years. I don't think it's been quite 15 years. I think we had some really good comedies up until 2013. We had some good ones, although less of them in the following years. And then since the pandemic, there has been a bit of a dip. But I would say kind of 2007 through to 2013 are peak comedy years for the people in my generation. It was the Apatow era. We got things like Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, all wonderful films, not on my 35 list today. But so many wonderful films. But the one for 2008 stars one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he's one of the world's favorite actors of all time. There's not many people who don't like it. This actor, his name's Paul Rudd. Of course, you love him. He's Ant-Man. He's in everything. Sean William Scott acts opposite him. We get to meet. Actually, no, I was going to say we meet Christopher Mintz-Plasse, but we were introduced to him a year earlier in Superbad. But this flick, underrated. I never hear anyone talk about it. The flick is called Role Models. And basically, Sean William Scott and Paul Rudd, two guys who work for an energy drink company, and then after they accidentally commit a crime, they're sent to anger management, and they have to fill out some community service. And the community service is basically being like a Big Brother program where they look after teens and children who don't really have a lot of friends or families. So it's designed to support them emotionally. And as you can imagine, they're the worst possible people to pair up with children. Sean William Scott drinks all the time. He listens to Kiss and he shows children Kiss and explains that it's all about sex. Paul Rudd is just determined to catch it, to kind of get his ex-girlfriend back, played by Elizabeth Banks. And hilarity ensues. It has one of the best final acts of any comedy ever, because Christopher Mintz-Plasse's character is obsessed with LARPing, live action role play. And so in order to support him and make him feel accepted, the gang get together and they create their own army. And the Kiss Army, they dress up as Kiss and they LARP for the last 20 minutes of the movie or so. It's really fun. There's a great soundtrack because it's all Kiss songs. You've got this 8-year-old boy who's obsessed with boobs, which I think is fitting. And he calls himself the Booby Watcher. That's his superhero name. Um, you can't go wrong. It's wonderful. All right, let's move on to 2009. We're sticking with Paul Rudd. We're sticking with that same era of comedy. Um, Obviously, I love Paul Rudd. The other actor in this film is one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. I got first introduced to him in How I Met Your Mother. I thought he was wonderful as Marshall Erickson, but then once he got a chance to really do his own thing in movies and write and direct, and kind of branch out from that sitcom world, we really got to see the best of him. It is, of course, Jason Segel. The movie is I Love You Man. Another one of my favorite comedies of all time. Paul Rudd plays a guy who doesn't have a lot of friends, a lot of male friends. He's always had more female friends. His brother, also played by Andy Samberg. His father, played by J.K. Simmons. Like, this is the caliber of actors we're getting in this movie, which is crazy. Um, he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's getting married. He proposes to his girlfriend, played by Rashida Jones, and she's like, "Who's your best man going to be?" And he doesn't know. He can't answer that question because he doesn't have any male friends. Like, he has guys that he knows, but none of them close enough to invite to the wedding. And then one day he stumbles across Sydney Fife, played by Jason Segel, and they hit it off and start a bit of a bromance. It's one of the first bromantic comedies. We've seen a lot of kind of bromances in films since then, but this is kind of one of the first big ones. Um, it's really wonderful. It's all about kind of it's a coming of age story where the children are played by 30-year-olds. But it's really fun. It's really silly. There's so many great one-liners, like "Catch Around Jobin," "See a City Slicker," "This Place Smells Like Farts." It's great. It's really good. Definitely worth checking out. Let's jump into 2010. We're over halfway through the list now. I'm very mindful. I've been going for almost an hour. So if you're like, he's not talking about the movies enough, I'm sure no one's thinking that. But if you are, I'm just giving you a soupçon, if you will. That way you can jump in and listen to the movies when you get the chance. 2010. I saw this flick in the drive-through. I think it's drive-in. I think it's the last movie I did see in the drive-in. It's a great superhero film. It's really funny. Again, Christopher Mintz-Plasse gets a mention. Um, who else in here is a bit of a repeat? No, that might be the only repeat so far. Directed by Matthew Vaughn. It's his first film. Matthew Vaughn, for those who don't know, was Guy Ritchie's producer for years. He worked on Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He worked on Snatch. But then in 2010, he branched out and made his own film, adapted by the Mark Miller comic book. I am, of course, talking about Kick-Ass. Great flick. Really good superhero film. One of the best superhero films of all time. Again, great sequel, but this one is definitely the strongest. We get Aaron Taylor Johnson, who would go on to be in a couple of Marvel films. You know, he'd go on to be Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. He would also go on to be Kraven the Hunter. He's a wonderful actor. Christopher Mintz-Plasse plays Red Mist. Mark Strong, wonderful UK actor. Maybe one of the best around. He would go on to be in Kingsman as well. And he's done, like, when I say go on to, he'd done a ton of stuff before Kick-Ass, but he's really great in this. We get introduced to Chloe Grace Moritz. I think this was maybe one of her first films. I think before this, I'm trying to think if she was in the Amityville Horror remake or not. I feel like she was. I can't remember now off the top of my head. And Nicolas Cage playing an Adam West inspired Big Daddy. The flick is very vulgar. It's very adult and grown up. There's plenty of dirty jokes in it. It's very violent. I remember when I saw this, I'd never seen anything like this before. I couldn't believe there was a movie like this. There was a costume superhero movie like this. I think it was probably my favorite film of the year in 2010. I don't know if it still is, but at the time it definitely was. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. There was a little girl who was like maybe 10 years old, throwing knives at people and swearing up a storm. Yeah, it's, again, I talked about the music in Sin City. Same people who did the music for Sin City did the music for Kick-Ass, at least some of them did. And that Flying Home track, which sounds like a sports night kind of intro theme, is wonderful. I used to drive to that a lot. Prodigy is on it with Stand Up. That's a great track as well. The fight scenes are excellent. The jokes are killer. It's pretty perfect. Pretty damn perfect. So Kick-Ass. I think most people follow me have probably seen Kick-Ass, but if you haven't, don't sleep on it. Check it out. there's no way you won't enjoy it. As long as you're not too squeamish. If you're too squeamish, maybe give it a miss, but I would still give it a go. Continuing the theme with comedic superhero films, films that get a little bit darker. This is the darkest superhero film you'll ever see in your entire life. It's directed by James Gunn before he made Guardians of the Galaxy, before he was lovable James Gunn, who makes movies about Groot, who's taking over the DC universe. We have this really dark flick starring Elliot Page, at the time it was Ellen Page, Rainn Wilson, Liv Tyler, Kevin Bacon, Nathan Fillion. The flick is called Super. I do not recommend this to many people. It's a great movie, but it is dark, really, really dark. It's pretty brutal. Think about Kick-Ass. Like when I saw Kick-Ass, I was like, oh wow, that's such a grounded superhero film. Looking back, it's definitely not. Like he gets into I can't feel he gets a jetpack and he has machine guns and stuff at the end. It's not that grounded. It was more realistic than most superhero films, but it wasn't that grounded. Super, very grounded. It's about a guy whose wife leaves him, and he tries to win her back. So he dresses up as a superhero and clocks people on the head with a wrench and splits their heads open. It's great and it's funny and it's silly and weird, but it is really dark. There's some pretty nasty scenes in it, especially between Ellen Page and Rainn Wilson. I won't go into them. I will say it is of the abusive nature, and when I say that, I don't mean like as a man abusing a woman. It's actually the other way around, which was very unusual and controversial at the time. But if you can stomach it, I would recommend it. I think it's a very underrated. Not a lot of people talk about it, but this one ain't for kids. It's full on, but it's also amazing. Alrighty, 2012, the year the world was supposed to end. For anyone who remembers that, it was meant to be the end of the world. Thankfully, we're still here. And I'm going back to The Well with Little Miss Sunshine. I always had talked about how much I love Little Miss Sunshine. This flick comes from the directors of that as well. Paul Dano returns as the lead this time. We get Zoe Kazan, who is such an underrated actress. Everything she's in, she's wonderful. She's in one of my favorite films of all time, The Big Sick. She's in this one as well, obviously, because I've mentioned her. We also have Antonio Banderas, Annette Bening, Steve Coogan. I could go on and on. It's the story of a writer who can't find love, so he writes the perfect woman. He wakes up the next day, she's alive, and she's his girlfriend. The flick is called Ruby Sparks. It's amazing. It's a wonderful love story. One of the best love stories I've ever seen. I've talked about on the show before. I'm not the biggest fan of rom-coms, although I did mention The Big Sick earlier. Maybe I'm just a fan of Zoe Kazan rom-coms, but this one's incredible. It's a really interesting study on the idea of consent. And when I say that, I don't mean in an abusive way, but Paul Dano creates a girl from fiction. So she's not a real girl, but she is a real girl. And therefore, should she have choices, or is she allowed to kind of fall under the kind of the control of the man who created her? It's really fascinating. But the love story is beautiful. It's a great romantic story. It gets really, really funny. It does get a little bit dark and upsetting at times. I just can't believe they made a movie like this. I can't believe a studio was like, yeah, make this movie. It's so unusual and so unlike anything else I've seen before. And it'll make you cry. Like, that's what'll shock you. I haven't really talked about crying in today's episode. If I look over the list of films I've seen, I don't think many of them made me cry. Jersey Girl did. That might be the only one on the list. Jersey Girl and Ruby Sparks. And Little Miss Sunshine. But check out Ruby Sparks. You can't go wrong. It's a lovely, lovely, beautiful movie. And you shouldn't be surprised. Like, it's in the same vein as Little Miss Sunshine. Moving on from Ruby Sparks, we're heading to 2013. We're going back to silly comedies. When I saw the trailers for this flick, I wasn't overly impressed, and that's probably because in 2013 the snobbiness is real. I'm really getting snobby. So pre-2013, I wasn't. I'd only been a couple of years away from the video store. I wasn't watching everything. I kind of knew what I liked and what I didn't like, at least I thought I did, but I wasn't really pretentious about it. But in 2013, I do start to get that way. I start working with people who sell movies. So I start selling movies with people. We talk about movies every day, and I'm starting to hear opinions. I'm basing my opinions on what other people are thinking, and not, thinking for myself. So I don't watch this movie straight away. I probably wait till it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray at the time, because Blu-ray was definitely out. but it's wonderful. It's really fun. I rewatched it earlier this year, and I was like, "Yes, this is as funny as I remember." You've got Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso's Jason Sudeikis in one of his earliest film roles, Jennifer Aniston, Emma Roberts, who I think is one of the most underrated actresses around at the moment. She's not really included in the conversation of those young starlets, but I think she's excellent. And a very young Will Poulter, before he was Adam Warlock, before he was in The Revenant, before he was in these incredible artsy films. The four of them played a fake family in We're the Millers. Jason Sudeikis plays a drug dealer who gets into some trouble with Ed Helms, who's this kind of kingpin. Weird role for Ed Helms, but really delightful. And when he gets into trouble, he has to sneak across to Mexico and steal a bunch of drugs to bring them back to America. But in order to avoid being suspicious, he hires a fake family. So um, Jennifer Aniston is a stripper. Will Poulter's like his neighbor, who's a bit of a dork, and Emma Roberts plays this runaway who kind of lives on the streets. They all kind of, put on this faux persona about being a family, go over to Mexico, and that all goes pretty swimmingly. It's the journey back because then they bump into this guy who works for the DEA, played by Nick Offerman, who's wonderful. I'm pretty sure Catherine Hahn plays his wife, and Molly C. Quinn from Castle plays their daughter. And it's about them just trying to get home without getting busted and trying to get sell these drugs back to the drug kingpin so they can make some money and you know have a better quality of life. It feels a lot in a way. It's going to sound like a weird comparison, but it does feel a lot like Vacation, the old National Lampoon film, because it's the idea of this family road trip film, even though they're not really a family. But it's surprisingly heartfelt. Like again, it's about a stripper and a drug trafficker like trying to make money off drugs. But it gets really emotional. I think the family dynamic stuff is excellent. There's not a bad person in the cast again, and it's really funny. The jokes land really well, and I think it's perfectly cast. I don't think you could replace any one of these actors with someone else and get the same result. It's really well done. It's hugely underrated. We're the Millers, definitely worth a watch. Jumping into 2014, we're going to get weird. We're going to get weirder than anything I've talked about so far. This is the weirdest film on the list, I think. I'm just looking over it quickly. It's definitely the weirdest film on the list. We're going back to Kevin Smith, who's one of my favorite directors of all time. He'd kind of taken a hiatus from film after the release of Red State in 2011. Red State, also wonderful if you haven't seen it. So after Red State, he took a hiatus. He said he was never going to make films again, but then he came up with a really weird idea for a horror film, and he's like, I got to do it because if I don't do it, no one's going to do it, and it's weird. It needs to exist. It stars the incredible Justin Long, who's a bit of a horror scream king. I don't know if that's a phrase. I'm coining it now, or if it's been coined, I'm co-opting it. The flick is called Tusk. Tusk is wonderful. It's a great horror flick. It's really, really underrated. A lot of people don't like it because they think it's silly, and it is, but that's kind of the point. Um, Justin Long plays this podcaster who does a show where basically they just talk about weird things. He goes traveling on the road and interviewing weird people, a bit of a roadside attraction type podcaster. Haley Joel Osment plays his co-host, um, and he goes to Canada to interview this kid, but the kid ended up committing suicide, so he's got nothing for the show. And then he comes across an ad in a pub where the guy's like, I've lived a storied life. I want to tell you the story of my life. I was a sailor. I became friends with a walrus. You should come and hang out with me. That stranger is played by Michael Parks, the late Michael Parks, who's wonderful. I haven't really talked about him on this episode. I've probably touched on him in the past on the podcast, but he's in every Quentin Tarantino film ever, pretty much up until 2017. I want to say. I'm trying to think if he was in Hateful Eight. I know his son was, but I don't know if he was in Hateful Eight or not. But basically, it turns out that this guy's just crazy. He abducts people, cripples them, and turns them into walruses. That's the plot of Tusk. It's super strange. It's there's nothing else out like it. I know Kevin Smith himself compared it to Human Centipede, saying it's a cuddly version of it. It's not even that. I remember showed it to Tina, and Tina's not the world's biggest Kevin Smith fan. She likes a couple of his films, but his sense of humor is not really her sense of humor. But we saw that in theaters, and she was pretty on board. Like it wasn't her favorite of his films, but she was pretty on board with how weird it was. So Tusk, if you haven't seen it, it's not too gruesome. There's actually not a lot of gore in it. So most of it's implied. It's very abstracted and almost Lynchian in a way. So if you like David Lynch stuff, this is like David Lynch light. It doesn't get as weird and as heavy as David Lynch films, but definitely worth checking out. Sticking with horror, but leaning more into the comedy. Obviously, Tusk does have some comedy in it, but this one has a lot of comedy in it. I talked about it before. This flick had one of the dumbest titles I ever heard. When it came out, I was like, "What the hell is that? Like, this is going to be so dumb." It is not dumb. It's brilliant. It has got Ty Sheridan. Is it Ty Sheridan? Yes, and David Koechner, and a bunch of other wonderful actors as well. But those are the two leads. Um, the flick. I'm just going to tell you what it is. The flick's called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. It is hands down one of my favorite zombie films of all time. Yes, I love Dawn of the Dead. Yes, I love Shaun of the Dead. I love Train to Busan. I love plenty of zombie films. But this flick, again, I never hear anyone talk about it, but it's so much fun. And it's really quite a practical approach to the zombie genre. Like the whole motto of being a scout is be prepared. And it's about these three guys who are probably too old to be in the scouts still, but they are. And when the zombie apocalypse begins, they have to use the skills they've acquired in the tool building to save their town from zombies. It's violent, it's gory, it's bloody, it's super inappropriate at times. If anyone's ever seen Reanimator, there's kind of like a sister scene to that infamous Reanimator scene. I'm not going to talk about what it is, but it's relatively graphic in a sexual nature. Um, the jokes are good. You've got like kind of a Stifler esque character. So for those who like American Pie, there's one guy who's a bit like Stifler. Um, but it's just a very fresh take on the genre. And because it's a fresh take on the genre, I think that's why it works so well. I've watched this flick half a dozen times. It never fails to disappoint me. Um, I would say if you're in the mood for something spooky or you want to try something with zombies, but you're not convinced with the scares, go with Scout's Guide. It's so much fun. Great movie. Cannot recommend enough. We are probably in the final third of the list right now, so we're going to start wrapping things up. We're jumping into 2016. This flick was really divisive, the one I'm going to talk about next. I loved it. The first trailer came out and I was like, this is going to be amazing. I saw it in theaters with Tina. We loved it. We thought it was a really well made film, really enjoyable, really fun play on the genre. I think because of the directors and having such a strong pedigree of work, it wasn't taken as seriously or people didn't enjoy it as much. Because the directors are Joel and Ethan Coen, the Coen brothers. You know, they'd made Fargo, they'd made Burn After Reading, they'd done No Country for Old Men. They've done so many. I want to say True Grit as well, maybe. I'm trying to remember now, but they've made so many wonderful, like prestigious films. To make a dopey comedy set in like the golden age of Hollywood, people were a little bit surprised by this, um, but they're wrong. It's wonderful. I remember when we were in the theater when the movie ended. There was an old guy behind us. He referred to it as a piece of trash. He was very grumpy about the movie he'd seen. But it's wonderful. We've got Josh Brolin, George Clooney, Alden Ehrenreich, Rafe Fiennes, Jonah Hill, Scarlett Johansson, Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, Channing Tatum. The flick is called Hail Caesar. It is about an abduction plot about an actor who disappears and is trying to be recruited by the Communist Party. It's about a fixer. So Josh Brolin plays a fixer who he makes problems go away in the golden age of Hollywood. And when we say problems, I mean pregnant starlets. I mean guys who have drinking and drug problems. Um, because back then Hollywood was supposed to be glamorous. We're all realists now. We know Hollywood isn't as glamorous as it looks, but in like the 40s and 50s, it was supposed to be that way. It's wickedly funny. I think the jokes are really good. The whole Alden Ehrenreich plays a Western star. He's kind of like a Clint Eastwood type. Actually, maybe more of a John Wayne because he's a tough guy, but he also can sing and he's a lover and things like that. And that wasn't really Clint Eastwood's jam. But then the studio decides to move him into like a classy like biopic set in a period piece, and it just doesn't work at all. Um, Great musical numbers, visually stunning. If you like La La Land, then I would say watch Hail Caesar. It's very similar tonally. If you like Babylon, I would also say watch Hail Caesar. It's obviously a lot cleaner and less adult than Babylon, but it's a really great old Hollywood piece, and it's so much fun. I've said that again. I'm trying not to say fun. Let's jump to 2017. 2017 was a huge year of movies for me. We had Logan, we had the Big Sick, as I mentioned previously. Um, we had Thor Ragnarok, we had Spider-Man Homecoming. We had so many films in 2017. I think I've talked about most of those films on the podcast already. So let's talk about a movie I haven't. There is one movie I keep meaning to want to talk about on the show that isn't on this list. I imagine at one point I'll sit down with Nick Owen. I'm thinking I can get a few more people who haven't seen the film to watch it as well. It's definitely one worth talking about. In 2003, an independent filmmaker named Tommy Wiseau released a film called The Room. It's widely considered the worst film ever made, or the best worst film, depending on who you ask. And that's because he was a theater guy and he didn't know if he wanted to write a play or a movie. So he wrote it as a play but shot it as a film. He didn't know if he wanted to shoot it on film stock or digital. So he took two cameras, taped them together so every single shot is off center. He wanted to write this kind of like passionate love story with betrayal and stuff like that. But the story probably wasn't as strong as he'd hoped, and it was an amateur production, so maybe some of his performances weren't as strong as he wanted. That being said, I have watched that film more than The Godfather. Um, it is very funny because it is so silly and melodramatic, but it's a wonderful flick. It's this film that is kind of like a testament to the idea of the filmmaker's dream. I used to watch it ironically and make fun of it. Now when I watch The Room, I get so much joy out of it. It's available on YouTube. You don't have to buy it on DVD or Blu-ray. You won't be able to stream it anywhere because it's kind of it's a very independent film. No studio owns it. If you jump onto YouTube, type in The Room. It's about an hour and a half, and you will not regret it. Best watched either inebriated or with a group. I've watched it. I've only ever watched it sober. I've had a wonderful time, but I've always watched it with a group. It's tougher to watch by yourself, but it does still work. That's what the movie I'm talking about. In 2017, James Franco teamed up with his brother Dave and with Seth Rogen and a bunch of other comedians, and they made The Disaster Artist. The Disaster Artist is based on the book of the same name by Greg Sestero. He was the producer on The Room, and he played the main antagonist, Mark, the man who steals Johnny's girlfriend. The Disaster Artist is all about the making of that movie, and it's hilarious. It's a really wonderful movie about friendship and kind of how friendship can be compromised when you both have the same dream, but maybe you're working on it from different angles. It's a great story. It's a great biopic about people trying to make a movie. It's hilarious. It's got an incredible cast of actors. I can't even name them all, like Paul Shear, Jason Mantzoukas, June Diane Raphael, Seth Rogen. I think I mentioned already. Nathan Fielder's in it. Alison Brie. Um, Jackie Weaver, Josh Hutcherson, like Ari Graynor. It's crazy. There's so many wonderful actors in it. If I recommend one film out of this entire list, I think this is the one. Like it's just it has to be seen to be believed. If you have the time, I would say watch The Room first and then watch this. But if you don't have time to watch The Room, watch The Disaster Artist. You won't be disappointed. It's so funny and silly. It's so heartfelt and heartwarming, and just I can't believe this movie exists. It shouldn't exist. There should not be a movie based on The Room, but there is, and it's worth every moment. Alrighty, we're heading towards the last few. As I mentioned to you before earlier in the podcast, I talked about how 2020 was a very life-defining year for me. I kind of changed my tune on being a snob. In 2018, I'm still a snob. I'm still very snobby up until about 2020. I'm probably starting to soften my approach in 2019, but 2020 is when it changed. So the movie for 2018, I didn't watch when it came out. I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, I'm not watching that. Even though it has one of my favorite actresses of all time in it. It was a Mark Wahlberg film. I had mixed feelings about Mark Wahlberg. He was making Transformers and stuff like that. But in 2020, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it a go because it's got Rose Byrne, and maybe I'll dig it. The movie is called Instant Family, and I don't think I've cried more in a film my entire life than Instant Family. I cried pretty much from start to finish. It's a wonderful movie. For those who don't know, it's about who haven't seen it. I would definitely recommend it. Mark Wahlberg, and I'd recommend every movie I'm talking about. So I don't know why I said I definitely recommend it. I'm recommending everything. Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne play a couple who can't have children, and so they decide they want to adopt. And when they go to the adoption agency, they find this teenage girl, and they really like her. Actually, maybe they find the young girl. I can't remember. It's been a while since I watched it. But they find a girl, and they really like her. And then the adoption agency is basically like, look, that child is a package deal. She has a brother and a sister, and they're like, we don't encourage it. We find that families who adopt multiple children who've grown up together can find it trickier. It may be better to split them up, but we'd rather not do that. And then it becomes this couple's journey of trying to like raise a family and raise these three kids with strangers to them, but kind of
make this family work. It's beautiful. I think it's one of Mark Wahlberg's best performances. Rose Byrne just is unstoppable. She's never put a bad performance in her life, even going back as far as um, The Rage in Placid Lake. It's excellent. So if you want a good cry, but you want to feel good about yourself as well, watch Instant Family. Cannot recommend enough. Full of tears, full of laughs. Great flick. Continuing that trend in 2020, I watched another family film, a film I never would have watched before 2020, but as my attitude changed, I gave it a go. It has the excellent Florence Pugh, who I'd become a big fan of thanks to Midsommar. It has Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who was someone who I'd kind of seen a few films of. I'd seen like the Jumanji films. I think he was probably the driving force behind me watching this. It's got Vince Vaughn, it's got Nick Frost, it's got Lena Headey. The flick is called Fighting with My Family. It's based on the true story of this wrestler. I don't remember her name. I'm not a wrestling guy. I never would have watched a movie about wrestling before 2020, but the cast was so good. I was trying to be more open minded. I gave it a shot. And again, the flick made me cry. It's full of wonderful performances. It's all about that the human drive to be better and achieve your dreams. Um, and Florence Pugh is excellent in it. I mean, they all are, but it's wonderful. It's funny. It's heartbreaking. Her older brother also wants to be a wrestler, so she and her brother want to be wrestlers their entire lives. They both get to this training camp. She gets selected, he doesn't. And it causes this rift between them to the point where she doesn't know if she's even going to have a brother anymore. Um, and yeah, it's just incredible. It's really wonderful. So I think it was made by the WWE or WWF. I don't know anything about wrestling, so I'm butchering that. But it is based on a true story. The wrestler's name was Paige. So if you're a wrestling person, if you like wrestling, you probably know who that is. Um, but it's a really good sports movie. I'm not a big sports movie guy, but this one, pretty great. Two left, and then a bonus one. Oh, which I didn't pull out of my shelf, so I'm just going to talk about it without showing. No, sorry, three more. 2020. 2020 is the year of the pandemic, obviously, so we had far less movies coming out. It was tough to find new movies. Disney Plus was launched only a few months earlier, and thank goodness it did because it gave us access to a lot of movies from Hulu and kind of their streaming stuff. The movie that probably loved the most from 2020, which I haven't talked about, it's another Andy Samberg film. It also stars Christina Milioti, who played the mother in How Much Mother. Spoilers for a very old show. The flick is called Palm Springs, and basically the story is Adam Sandler shows up to a wedding, and no, Adam Sandler shows up to a wedding. Christina Milioti shows up to a wedding, and she gets drunk and she passes out. She goes to like this weird cavern, and it's Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day, but they're in Palm Springs, and she meets Andy Samberg, and it turns out he's been trapped there for months, just repeating the same day over and over, and now she's trapped there as well. So the film is them trying to escape their Groundhog Day situation. It's a love story. I think the love story is really fun. The idea of being stuck in Groundhog Day is better if you're stuck with someone who you like or you're growing to like. It's really funny. It's got some really tense moments as well. Like it is a good sci-fi thriller, but it is mainly this rom-com through a sci-fi prism. I don't believe it's available on physical media at all, but it's worth checking out. I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu. I think that's where I watched it. I can't remember now. If not, maybe it was Amazon Prime. Um, but it's a great flick. It's really good. I think it's one of the better days repeating films since Groundhog Day. Obviously, Groundhog Day is kind of the gold standard. I think following that, Palm Springs is probably the best version of that kind of film. All right, let's jump to 2021. Pandemic's still going. We're still having lockdown. Yes, we can travel a bit more, but if you're in Victoria like me, you can travel about 10 kilometers. You can't go too far. We get a brand new streaming service in 2021. It's a streaming service called Binge. It's a spin off of Foxtel. In America, it's the same kind of thing. They get something called HBO Max. And their premiere title on HBO Max, the big film that's driving sales and everyone's talking about, is the long awaited director's cut of the 2017 Frankenstein flop of a movie, Justice League. In 2021, we get Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's the version he always wanted to release, but after a family tragedy couldn't. People were pretty disappointed with the 2017 film. Just on a personal note, I actually liked the 2017 Justice League. Joss Whedon aside, I thought it wasn't too bad. I thought it was quite enjoyable. It felt small for a team film. It felt like everything was shot on green screens, but they hadn't done enough world building to make it seem bigger. But I enjoyed it for what it was. But 2021, we got the 4-hour cut of Justice League. There's so much more stuff in it. I didn't even hold up the case. There it is. For me, it's one of the best superhero films of all time. I know that's controversial, and people are going to automatically think that I'm a Snyder lover. I mean, yes, I am, but I wasn't one of those release the Snyder Cut guys. I'm not clinging to the Snyderverse the way that some people do. There's nothing wrong with that. If you like those films and you want more of them, I don't begrudge you for that. But I also understand that that time has come and gone, and I'm ready for the next wave created by James Gunn. But this is an incredible film. Affleck is great as Batman. It's probably his best performance as Batman. I liked him in everything he did, but this is probably the best version of it. Ezra Miller's Flash really gets fleshed out and gives a great performance as well. Has a wonderful moment. His whole time travel sequence at the end is spectacular. I think it's one of the single most beautiful visual effects of any superhero film of all time. We get Ray Fisher's Cyborg. I couldn't remember his name for a second. Yeah, Ray Fisher's Cyborg, which excellent. We get heaps of Henry Cavill's Superman, which is wonderful. Gal Gadot has one of the best introductions of all time. It's very similar to what we saw in the 2017 cut, but it's extended and it's darker. Killer score. The JXL score is wonderful. Jason Momoa, obviously, I forgot to mention, as Aquaman is great. We get Darkseid. We get a proper Steppenwolf. The visuals of Steppenwolf are incredible, and the performance is really wonderful, especially for a CGI character. That is probably the biggest improvement on the 2017 for me is the Steppenwolf story and design. We get wonderful little glimpses into the nightmare future, including that end sequence. It's not a post-credit sequence. It's like one of the last sequences. That's all wonderful as well. The flick would probably be an hour shorter if there wasn't any slow motion. But I think the slow motion is used really well. I like the slow motion used. There's that great team shot of them all racing through. There's the Batmobile and everyone else is flying next to the Batmobile. It looks like a scene from a Jim Lee splash page. It's excellent. It's long, but it's designed in a way that you can enjoy it in a couple of different ways. It has all the different chapters. There's like 7 chapters involved, so you can watch it that way. The Blu-ray has it on 2 discs, so you can actually watch it as a 2-part film. I find that's the best way to watch it, unless you want to sit down for 4 hours straight. If you can do 4 hours straight, that's the best way. But as a 2-parter, it works really well as well. You can watch it in 2 days and have a good time with it. It's a shame we're not going to see more of this, but I'm glad that we got what we did with this version of the universe, and this is one of the top films of that universe. Up with Batman vs Superman, up with Man of Steel, up with Wonder Woman. It's it's breathtaking. And we got Green Lanterns. We got some Green Lanterns, which is really fun, and we also got the Martian Manhunter. And I know people didn't love that, but I did because I had never seen the Martian Manhunter in a movie before. So Zack Snyder's Justice League. Believe the hype, it's great. 2022, the 35th movie in the list. I will do a 2023 film as well, as I said, but the last film in my 35 movies in 35 years. We got through it pretty quickly. We're going for just under an hour and a half, so not too bad, considering I'm talking about a lot of movies. 2022 was tough because there were so many great films, but there's one key filmmaker that should be talked about in a list like this, and I've missed heaps. I haven't talked about Edgar Wright. I haven't talked about Quentin Tarantino. I haven't talked about Chris Nolan. So there's plenty of stuff that people haven't talked about, but I've talked about their movies so much on the podcast, we kind of get a pass today. But one person I personally haven't talked about a lot is Steven Spielberg. And in 2022, he made one of my favorite films of the year. I didn't get to watch it until a couple of months into this year, but I honestly think it's the best thing he's made in almost a decade. It's semi-biographical. It's a story about a love of movies and a lifelong love of movies. The movie's called The Fabelmans, and it's beautiful. I've seen some people say that it's a bit wanky and it's a bit self-indulgent, but the guy likes making movies. He's loved making movies his entire life, and it's meant to kind of be about him, so I don't mind it getting self-indulgent. It's just, again, Paul Dano. I've talked about him a few times now. Obviously, he's a favorite of mine. Michelle Williams, Seth Rogen, incredible cast, incredible performance, heartbreaking performance actually, but just so beautiful. The flick made me cry a bunch again, which shouldn't surprise you because I've mentioned a bunch of times that I've cried. I can see someone has joined the show. We have Jess Brown, former previous guest, multiple guests on the show. Jess Brown has just joined. She's requested to join. Jess, if I include you in this, your face is going to be on camera for everyone to see. So I'm just letting you know that. I don't know if you want to send me a message on here or not. But yeah, if you ask to join, you will be on camera, and I know you don't want to do that. Ignore the request, though. That's Jess, you came at the very end of the show. We're just wrapping up, but that's okay. So The Fabelmans, sorry, I didn't finish that. The Fabelmans is an excellent film. If you love movies and you love talking about movies, you love the idea of making movies, cannot recommend The Fabelmans enough. Just like with every other film, I'm going to do a wrap up of all the films again before we get out of here. That is the 35th movie, so 35 movies in 35 years. However, I did say I would do a 2023 film as well. Really hard to pick because 2023 has had so many wonderful movies. With this, I had to decide on something that I probably wasn't going to talk about in my end of year wrap up. So, if you've listened to the podcast the last couple of years, you'll know that at the start of every new year, I do a retrospective on the previous year and we go through our top 5 or 10 movies. This year, I think we did 3 episodes on 2022. I know this movie's not going to be my top 5. It's not because it's not a great film. It just, there are at least 5 other films I liked more than this. So 2023, my recommendation film that you should check out if you haven't seen is a movie called Renfield. It stars Nicholas Hoult as the character Renfield, Nicolas Cage as Dracula. And basically it's the story of Dracula's first servant and how they're kind of in a codependent, abusive relationship. It's very funny. It's very violent and gory. And it's just nice seeing Nick Cage play Dracula. I know it's something he wanted to do his entire life, and that's why he took a supporting role. For those who don't know, Nick Cage is kind of insane. He won't take roles in movies unless they're leads. He won't be in TV shows because he's a movie actor. And when I say insane, like I mean that in a loving way. He's wonderful. But he won't do it unless he's the lead in a movie. But Renfield, he made the exception because he loves Dracula so much. So it's very silly. It's not scary at all, if I'm being honest. It's not a scary film. It's definitely like a very violent episode of The Munsters. But Renfield's worth your time. I know that Kevin from Midnight Terrors loves Renfield as one of his favorite films of the year. But if you like action, if you like comedy, if you like tongue-in-cheek horror, I can't recommend Renfield enough. It's really wonderful. I had a blast watching it. It just wasn't enough to be a top 5 film. Like there have been so many great films in 2023, but just because it's not a top 5 film doesn't mean Renfield isn't worth your time. So go check it out. So that's it. That is the end of the first ever live episode of I Was a Teenage Film Snob. Thank you for people who've been checking in. It was a long episode for a live show. It's been going for about an hour and a half, so I didn't expect people to sit there for an hour and a half. So for those who checked in and watched and sent comments, thank you so much. Definitely appreciate that. Before we get out of here, I'm going to go through the list one more time. We'll do some plugs and then we'll wrap up for the night. Will we do this again? I don't know. We'll see how the response is to the episode. I've never done an episode talking to myself this long. Normally I do like 30, 40 minutes. This is the longest solo episode I've ever done, and it's just me talking about the movies, but hopefully you enjoyed it. But we'll go through that list one more time. So from 1988 through to 2023, here are 36 movies in 35 years I recommend you watch. 1988, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. 1989, Batman. 1990, Misery. 1991, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Secret of the Ooze. 1992, Wayne's World. 1993, Super Mario Brothers. 1994, The Mask. 1995, Billy Madison. 1996, Matilda. 1997, Being the Ultimate Disaster Movie. 1998, Basketball. 1999, Idle Hands. 2000, Pitch Black. 2001, Evil Woman, or if you're in America, Saving Silverman. Oh, I didn't do 2002. Oh my goodness! I'm glad we did this recap. 2002. We'll end on that one. It was 8 Mile. I loved 8 Mile. I think 8 Mile is a great film. I think it was very well appreciated at the time that it came out. But people don't really talk about it anymore. But it was the first time Eminem had really acted, and I know there was some skepticism around that because like, oh, he's a rapper, should he act? 8 Mile is a fantastic film. It's a really great film, just like how I was talking about with fighting with my family. That desire to achieve your dreams and to work hard no matter what. 8 Mile's excellent. It's also my second film with Brittany Murphy. She's great in it as well. So 2002, 8 Mile. I apologize to everyone involved in that film for skipping over you when I was going through it before. 2003, Daredevil. 2004, Jersey Girl. 2005, Sin City. 2006, Little Miss Sunshine. 2007, Hot Rod. 2008, Role Models. 2009, I Love You Man. 2010, Kick-Ass. 2011, Super. 2012, Ruby Sparks. 2013, We're the Millers. 2014, Tusk. 2015, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. 2016, Hail Caesar. 2017, The Disaster Artist. 2018, Instant Family. 2019, Fighting with My Family. 2020, Palm Springs. 2021, Zack Snyder's Justice League. 2022, The Fablemans. And 2023, Renfield. Those are 36 movies worth your watch, worth your time. They will make your life better for watching them. They're all fun and deep and interesting in their own wonderful ways. I love all of them. I wouldn't have mentioned them if I didn't. Thank you, everyone, for watching the live stream. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. It is dropping on Sunday morning when the episode normally would. Thank you for all the birthday wishes to the people who reached out yesterday as well. I definitely appreciate that. Before we wrap up, I'll give you a bit of an update on the show. I'm recording 3 episodes in the next week. I'm recording our end-of-year special. We're doing something very different for that, so stay tuned. That'll drop on New Year's Eve. I am recording a double date episode. So I'm sitting down with my wife and Liz and David. So Liz is my wife's sister. David is our brother-in-law. So we're sitting down, the 4 of us, and we're doing something a little bit different next week. So that'll be dropping next Sunday, I imagine. I'm catching up with Nick Owen again. He hasn't been on the show solo in a little while. We're doing a review episode and talking about some other stuff as well. And then I think that'll pretty much take us to the end of the year. I don't think there'll be any weeks missed after that. I think that's everything. But if I forget anything, I will talk about it. If you haven't watched it yet, I dropped a really stupid song on my birthday the other day, a song that I wrote when I was 20. I sing. I'm not good at singing, but if you haven't listened to that, it's like 4 minutes long, the whole video, 2 minutes intro, and then 2 minutes song. It's worth your time because it's very silly. It'll make you laugh. If you haven't listened to last week's episode with Samantha McCarty, we talk about The Office for over 2 hours. It's so much fun. I haven't laughed that long, maybe ever, in an episode this year, so check that out as well. If you want to support this show, head over to Instagram. I was a teenage film snob, underscores between every single word. I post all sorts of random stuff. It used to be movies and Blu-rays, but obviously I'm trying to get a record deal with my music as well. So check that sort of stuff out. If you send me a comment or a like, I will respond. I will get involved and have a chat to you, so please send it that way. If you haven't reviewed the podcast before, jump onto Spotify, jump onto Apple Podcasts, give us a like, give us 5 stars. Give me 1 star. I don't care. I just want to hear from you. Tell me your top 5 favorite films. I'd love to read it. If you want to support this show financially, you can get your very own I Was a Teenage Film Snob t-shirt. I'm wearing it right now. It looks great. It was designed by Josh Sacco, who's been on the show time and time again. Head to tpublic.com, type in I Was a Teenage Film Snob, or use the links in my Instagram. I don't know if the Black Friday sale is still going on. They were doing 40% off t-shirts for Black Friday. If not, it should be 15 to 20% off for first-time customers. They look great. They're really comfortable. I don't really make any money off them. It's just about getting the word out. So if you haven't got one, go and buy one if you want to. And send me a picture if you're wearing the shirt, and I'll put it up on Instagram because it's a great-looking shirt, and all of my listeners are great-looking people. If you... no, that's it. I was going to ask you to support the show financially, but I just did that. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening and supporting the show. I'll be back next week with another episode. This was a lot of fun. I was really nervous at the start. You would have noticed I even mentioned a couple of times. But once I got talking, I just fell into it. So thank you all for listening. I'll be back next week. But as I say every single time on this show, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.